Stitching mysteries. Stick around, there's something here for you. Getting old is not for sissies, so Karen's focusing on something new. Learn a little, stay a little, stitch a little, love a little. Learn a little, stay a little, stitch a little, love a little.
Well, here we are. Gotta adjust I bumped my camera a little bit, so let's get that back where there we go, back where it needs to be. I have a new contraption here that here we go, that I have my camera on. It's a little bit more out of the way than what my one that attached to the table. So this one should be a little bit more comfortable. And okay, let me get my other set of eyes on here. Today I'm going to be using see if you can see them, my mag eyes that clip onto your glasses. Give these a go. Aha. So I look like I have 4 eyes, but that's quite okay. That's quite all right. So let's see. Let's make sure I am. Yep, you should be getting my sound, so all should be good. Okay, so let's see. First question I had is, when starting this is from Norma F, asked me, when starting a thread, do I start at the bottom left of a horizontal thread, or get caught on my ring, or the bottom left of a vertical thread? Now this becomes, it's not quite as important when you're stitching on Ada cloth because of the weave and you don't have thread slippage. However, it has always been, ever since I can remember, my rule of thumb to start at the bottom left of a vertical thread. That prevents your thread from slipping. Now, I don't have a piece of even weave here, and let's see if I can zoom in just a little bit more and try and, or am I? Oh, I think I'm zoomed all the way in. So let's try and pull this down a smidgen. Okay, you can kind of see this one would be a horizontal. And I guess I would say it depends on how you stitch. This one's a horizontal, so if I am going to stitch and then come up in the bottom right, that thread could tentatively slip under, especially when you're stitching over one on an even weave or a linen. If you start at the bottom right of a vertical thread, or do I have this backwards? I always start the bottom right of a vertical thread, because then I'm coming up, and when I come up, I'm actually going underneath that horizontal thread, so it has no place to slip. So, I mean, you almost have to have a piece of fabric right in front of you and you know, look at how your thread is traveling for that to really make sense. But if you start at a horizontal thread, and then you come up in the lower right-hand corner, you're not going underneath another fabric thread to lock that stitch in place or to prevent that stitch from slipping. Whereas if you go under, or if you come up in the bottom corner of a vertical thread, like I said, when you go to complete your stitch, if you're stitching the way I do, the bottom left to top right, and then the bottom right, if you look, you're actually going under that horizontal thread, which then prevents your stitch from slipping. And this is why in stitching over one on an even weave, I have showed you guys, or sent a lot of you, the charts I had that show you how to do that. And it is by, if you're crossing an intersection where the top thread is horizontal, then you're going to have your thread follow on the back of your fabric horizontally to bring your needle up, because then you're going under that vertical thread and your thread can't slip under your fabric thread. So it's you just have to think about that a little bit. Oh, I did it again. Bumped. Pardon me for doing that. So you have to think about how your thread travels and in respect to the threads of your fabric, so that you can prevent slippage. So the other reason is that it helps you to know if you've, especially stitching over two, if you miscounted and maybe you only went over one instead of over two. Because you would always start your X at the bottom left of a vertical thread. So just another thing to keep in mind. That may help. So thank you, Norma, for that question. That was a really great question. And hopefully that explains it a little bit and answered what you needed to know. So next question was from Charmaine. I'm not exactly sure there. I can't read my own handwriting. How long do I cut my threads? Well, since I started using this new thread system, which I showed you in a previous video, this floss anthology, which I do really, really, really like, I started cutting my thread. Let me see. I think I made a template here. Yes. I use this to cut my thread. And I just made this out of a piece of, I don't know what it was. I think it was a heavier paper that already had some holes punched in it, because I put this in the front of the notebook. And when I measured it, it came to about 10 inches. So if you're wrapping around this, okay, and I cut just one end, that gives me a length of thread 20 inches or thereabouts. The floss system is made for a thread that is 50 centimeters. Now, I don't don't ask me the centimeters in 20 inches or in 10 inches. I don't know. But that's how I cut. And when I made this, I actually held it against the channel in the on the thread pages, and it was exact. And so this is what I use to cut anymore. And speaking of the thread system, let me pull out a page here that maybe doesn't have too many threads hanging. Or let me bring it here under this camera. What I found, and I had someone else say the same thing, when you're pulling, here we go, when you're pulling your thread out, so that you don't get this where you have a whole maybe extra pieces coming loose, if you put your finger on top of this part after you have your one piece of thread and hold your finger here, it keeps this from sneaking up on you, so to speak. So if you just hold your finger like right here over this and then pull your thread, you're keeping the rest of the threads in place while you pull out the one that you want. And then you can see it here. If I have extra, I just loop it back under this little part here. I just take my needle and move my needle up so that I have a length that doesn't have that tail on it to get underneath there, and then take the needle off and straighten it out. And then I just lay them on top here like this. What I am trying to do anymore is finish my length of thread. How can I say this? Big advocate of diagonal stitching. I think it's wonderful. I have a lot of videos out there of different ways to do it, showing people how to do it, answering questions on diagonal. I started the diagonal group, and it is a wonderful method. However, for now, I'm finding that to be able to work a whole strand of floss at a time, or use that strand until I complete that color. With my arm and shoulder issue, that's working the best for me because it gives me less motion on this arm, so that basically right now my right hand is underneath, and I'm kind of resting it on the table. So the only thing moving really is my wrist, which hopefully will allow me to stitch a little bit longer than what I have been able to here of late, because I really, in all honesty, haven't. I think if I did in the last 2 weeks, if I did, okay, in the last 14 days, if I did 1,000 stitches, that was a lot. And I don't even think I did that many. My arm would start to hurt, and it was like, okay, that's enough. I need to stop now. I need to be done. So, anyway, back to the original question. I cut my thread to be 50 centimeters, or once it's cut, after I wrap it around there, it is about 20 inches long. And I really think that is, as far as when you're stitching over one, that is an elegant sufficiency of thread. So, on to the next. Missy Jensen so kindly helped me out with what the weave is called for what I was calling a mono weave, which to me meant the intersection was made up of one thread vertically and one thread horizontally. However, she, I believe, is a weaver and knows the proper terms for that. So an even weave fabric or a linen, which is one fabric thread in each direction that makes up your intersections, is called a plain weave or a tabby. And the hardanger, which is 2 threads of fabric by 2 threads of fabric that make up the intersection, that is called a Panama weave. So even I learned something new. I found that to be very interesting. Like I said, and even I learned something new, and that's as it should be. Because like I said, like I always tell you, I'm not an expert. I can only tell you from my experiences and what I've learned over the years. So to add to my knowledge base is wonderful. I always appreciate when someone says, hey, this is what this is, or this is what that is, because we're all here to help each other out. So thank you, Missy, for that information. I really appreciate that. And then we have Sandra. Sandra has a bit of a dilemma. She asked me if I would show some gridded fabrics. And I can do that. But the reason that she was asking that is because, and I think I understand this right, Sandra, and if I'm wrong, please correct me. But I think what was happening to her is exactly like what happens to me with the Zweigert based, the gray lines on the gridded fabric. Once you start stitching on that and those gray lines start getting covered up, they're very hard to see, and they kind of get lost within your stitching. And I'm sure we're not the only ones that have that issue with that fabric. And it's a great, don't get me wrong, it's a wonderful fabric. I would not want to stitch without a grid. As you see on this one, I've gridded it myself. And what I do periodically is go over these lines again, because with the chalk pencil it does tend to sometimes rub off. So what I suggested to Sandra, and I hope you let me know how it works out for you. Okay, I'm just And yes, I am traveling my threads. But what I suggested to Sandra is to get a chalk pencil or a water-soluble marker, whichever one she prefers, or any of you that are listening to this prefer, and go over those lines with either the chalk pencil or the marker to make them stand out a little bit better, so that so they don't get as lost in your stitching and you can see them better. When I'm working on pre-gridded fabric, that's exactly what I do. I take my chalk pencil and I'll just retrace the lines so that I can see it. Like I said, I can see them when I start, but as your stitching progresses, they get a little hard. So yeah, just stitch over them a little bit with chalk pencil or a water-soluble marker, and hopefully that will help you to see them a bit better. So that's the little tip of the week. Okay, now here I go. See, it's very hard for me not to bring this right hand up and stitch one-handed, because really, truly, that is my preferred way to stitch. Oh, sometimes I just can't win. Yeah, my husband said I need to stop hurting myself. Soon I won't have many parts left that aren't damaged in some way, but that's a whole nother thing. Sally asked, and I, in all honesty, have very little experience in this, but Sally asked me, do I have any ways of ending the threads on the top of your work when you're doing tent stitching? She tried running her needle under the stitches on the top and wasn't real happy with that. She tried something else. Oh, a pin stitch. No, I'm wrong. She didn't try a pin stitch. Anyway, she tried several things and wasn't really happy with it. So she was asking, do I have any insight on a way to end your threads when you're tent stitching that you don't have to flip your fabric over? I have very, very little experience with tent stitching because I don't do it. I don't know. I just don't like the way it looks. For me. Maybe it's the fact that I'm doing half stitches and then I'll come back and cross them, but maybe it's the fact that I do the tent stitch in this direction, and that is not the same direction as my top stitch normally is. However, that is the direction that is the easiest to stitch. Oh, here. So I'm going to ask for everybody's help. And if you have suggestions for Sally on ending your thread on the front when doing tent stitching, could you please, I would really appreciate if you could put them in the comments so that Sally, you can then read the comments and maybe pick up some tips. And I will also, of course, read the comments because I try to read every comment. I might only put a heart to let you know that I have read it, and I don't necessarily put a response to every comment because sometimes I give you the answers here. So if anybody has any suggestions or little tips or ways to make that work for her, let a comment so that either she can read them or I can make note of them and include them in a video, because I'm sure there's probably more people than just Sally that want to know that answer. So if you could help out there, that would be appreciated. And the last question I had, I thought this was so cute. And again, it was from Sally. Bless you. But no, that was not me singing the jingle in the beginning of the video. That was Kaylee Crustich, and I have to thank her from the bottom of my heart for writing that and sending it to me so that I can include it in the videos. If you guys only knew, I do like to sing when nobody's around because I can't carry a tune in a bucket. Yeah, no, no. So no, that was not me. And seriously, you don't want to hear what I would sing. It would be downright scary. So I will save you that agony and not record anything of me singing to put in my videos, because no. However, you would get a mighty good laugh from it. Because no, I can't. But I will give all the credit to Kaylee for recording it and sending it my way. And I don't know about you guys, but I truly do just love it. She did a fantastic job. And I'm so very, very appreciative of the fact that she did do that. So that's the end of my questions. So you're probably asking or thinking, well, if you aren't doing a lot of stitching, what have you been up to? Well, I'll show it in my next video, because I did not bring it over here, but I did knit a shawl. Now, I had it started before I hurt my arm. Seriously, I don't knit that fast. So I had a shawl. I finished a shawl, and I am now knitting a pair of socks. 2 at a time, toe up on magic loop. So I will also show those on the next video. So that's kind of what I've been doing since I haven't been stitching a lot. And as you notice, I do take quite a few breaks when I am stitching, just because the arm is starting to feel a little bit better. I don't want to overdo things with it. What the doctor has told me, I go back in, I guess it'd be 3 weeks now instead of a month. Well, a month from when I was there last week. And I will not see him, but I will see his physician's assistant. And if it's no better, then the next step will be physical therapy. However, if I'm a good girl, which I don't always tend to be, if I rest it and let it heal, because it will take probably about 3 months for that to happen, I can avoid having to go to physical therapy. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Like I said, I'm trying very hard not to overdo the stitching and keep it down to pretty much a dull roar at this point. So, I mean, that means this stocking for sure is not going to be finished. Well, this one may be finished for Christmas because I am at 38%. So we're coming on halfway. Yeah, it's a little bit of ways yet, but it will go faster once I get out of this area. There. Once I get out of this lamppost, the rest of this is really pretty easy stitching. It's a lot of these colors that make up the snowman. So the stitching gets more blocks of color, and that's going to go a whole lot faster than this fiddly confetti. So I could get it done in time for Christmas this year. Adams, however, will not. In fact, I haven't even really started that one yet. So we'll see how it goes. So I really don't have much else because, as I always say, we are Mr. and Mrs. No Life. And we really, we're really pretty much homebodies. So not a lot to tell you about of where I've been or what I've been doing because I haven't been anywhere. Memorial Day is on Monday. So we're switching it up, and my daughter, her husband, and the grandkids are coming here on Sunday morning for a visit before they go to Adam's family. So that'll be nice. I don't know that we have anything planned on Monday. Just our usual, what we do on a Monday is what it is. But I hope each and every one of you have a wonderful holiday weekend and get a lot of stitching time in. So I think we're going to call it a day for now. Don't want to overdo this. We're working on having things get a little better, so I don't want to push my luck for now. So I think I'm going to say goodbye for now. I hope all of you have a wonderful holiday weekend here in the States. And remember what this weekend really is all about. And it's remembering those people who have lost their lives defending our country. And we just need to thank them for giving the ultimate sacrifice that they did. So keep them in your hearts on this Memorial Day. And with that, I'm going to say goodbye. And remember, the only